to my shed here in Derbyshire. Today I'm going to show you how to do a platter out of some spalted silver birch. Now the problem I'm going to have turning this is that it's very soft, it's very flaky, it's heavily spelted, and also the diameter of the piece that I want to get out of it is bigger than the height between my chuck centre and the bar. So I'm going to have to do something here, which I'll show you in a second. So here you can see I've approximated the centre of the piece that I want to make. I've just used a pair of dividers really and just worked out where the approximate centre is to these points, which are the pieces which will be closest to the centre. So that gives me the circle of my piece that I'll end up with. So that's where I'm going to put my depression to hold the piece in place on the lathe. You can see how soft this is because it won't even take this bit, so I'm going to have to think of a different way of doing that. Okay, so what I've had to do here is you can see where it bounced around because it was so soft. I can almost pull this to pieces with my nail. I've had to go a little bit deeper here, but I have got enough here to get a grip of this now. So I'm going to put this on the lathe, and you can see here I've removed the tube, the single tube of my lathe, pulled it back out the way. It's under the camera at the moment, and this gives me enough room here now to mount this on the chuck. This is going to be the up side of the platter, so all this material around here is going to get scooped out, so this will disappear. This gives me the chance, once this is on the lathe, to actually form a base here on this side. So all this will eventually disappear. So I've just got to get it to hold on long enough for me to turn the bottom. So here's the piece now mounted, and you can see it's quite irregular, and this piece here is the problem piece because it's still going to hit the bench. So I'm going to have to take this off with the lathe locked in position until I can get it to be just big enough to spin. You can see it's catching there as well. So I'm going to lock this in this position and take it away with my carving tool. So set I'm ready to go now with the carving tool. Here you can see it again. It's this piece that we saw in the last video, and I'm going to use it just to quickly remove this piece of excess wood here. Again, I've got a face mask to stop the pieces from hitting me in the face, and again I'm going to be very careful here, hardly touching the piece. It's very soft, so this will shift it very quickly. This is still very eccentric as far as its weight's concerned. You can see that it still wants to drop down to the point where this knot is down the bottom. So I'm going to have to be very careful about the speed I choose to turn this at. So I'll switch it on its lowest speed and I'll bring it up. Still a little bit of catch there, but that should disappear very quickly. I was only catching that in one place, but since I was cutting across I can now see where the cross cuts were, and again it is this piece with this knot, so I'm going to lock it in place again and spend a bit more time taking this lump out. So I've been doing a little bit more work on it now. It's starting to get a bit rounder. It's still eccentric as far as weight's concerned. That's because the thickness varies across the piece and the density varies greatly across the piece. And this is one of the problems with this kind of wood, is that some parts of it are incredibly soft, like cardboard, you can pull them away with your nail, and other parts are still very hard. And again, it's the price you've got to pay if you want something that looks as nice as this. So to my next problem and the solution to it. Since I've removed the bar, I've lost my tool rest because my tool rest is fastened to that single pole. So what I've got is I've got this slide mount here, slide clamp, which I got from an engineering shop, local engineering shop. It wasn't very expensive. It's like a cheap import kind of thing, and again it's got quite a bit of movement on it, but when it's got the weight of the tool on here, that holds down and it's actually fairly stable, and it does allow me to rotate these parts here and change the position of this. Obviously I can put the longer rest in here to get out to the edge, which is what I'm going to do shortly. So I'm going to set myself up with this, and I've got to be careful down in here because it's going to get to touch down here before it gets up touching here. So set it in place like that, everything's firm, and I'll start turning this and I'll turn the base out. So now I've got the longer rest in, I'm going to turn the face flat and turn myself a foot here that I can get hold of with the chuck. Again, this is very soft wood, so I need to turn a dovetail that I can grip with the chuck, because otherwise if I try and put a hole in it and push out, if I remove any material here, it won't be strong enough, it'll just burst out, the whole thing will come off the lathe. Gonna turn a dovetail into here and clean the face off so it's flat, and it's quite eccentric at the moment, so again, low speed. So I've just gone all the way out to the edge there, and you can see it's catching out here on this ridge, and it's catching in the centre here. Now it's very difficult to see possibly, but you can just about see what's happening there. Even though that tool has just been sharpened, it is pulling this stuff out. It's just like fluff. So I'm going to do a basic shape here, and then I'm going to have to profile this with a sanding disc, because turning it with even a very, very sharp tool just pulls the face out. Okay, a quick word about shaping this. Again, I'm using the carver. There's no point in going near this with the tools yet. I've tried that and it still just pulls out. You can see it's pulling out terribly at the moment. So I'm just trying to get some kind of shape into it at the moment, because again I've got to try and get rid of all this tear out that's happening here. So again I'm going to carve with this, and as it bounces you'll find that, you know, as you go in a bit harder it'll start to bounce. Then what happens is I come off that a little bit and just let it graze the piece that it's bouncing against, so the high point gets taken out first. Also it'll bounce when it finds a harder piece inside this very soft matrix. So this area around here is actually quite hard, this area here. It's not as heavily spelted as the rest, but around here it's really soft. And again, the hard part is the heavy part. That's why it's dropping to the bottom. So I'm going to carry on now, and again if I hit a high point so it's like bouncing off, then I'll just be gentle and take off that high point first. If I try and go in hard, I'll just start to contour it, and this will go in and out with the soft and then come out again where the hard is, and I'll get an uneven piece, which is not what I'm after. So let's have a go with that. The reason why I'm still going at this is because I haven't quite got rid of the natural edge yet. There's still some scoops in here that I need to get rid of before I can then turn to the actual final shaping that I want to do at this side. But remember, I've got to shape this down so that I've got a dovetail that I can get hold of with the chuck. So now what I need to do is I need to make a cut into the base here to receive the jaws of my chuck. and I'm going to be using the larger set so I can get a much larger area to get a grip of, and also I can then blend that depression that I'm going to cut now to use as my dovetail. I can blend that into the design of the base, because I'm not going to be able to get rid of it really until after I've finished the whole piece. So now I'm going to cut the base here, and as you can see, just by doing this, you can see that it tears out into these little pieces of fluff that rip out of here. So I'm going to have to speed it up a little bit. I'm going to have to go in very gently, and then I'm going to have to finish this with a sanding tool. We'll see how that works. That mark is to give me an indication for the inside face of the dovetail I now need to cut. And you can see the pencil, just the pencil has cut a groove in the surface of this stuff. It's that soft. See, I'm cutting away from the line at the moment. So my next job now is to sand this so that it's as smooth as possible, almost to the point where it's finished, and then see how this dovetail survived that sanding process. I may have to cut it deeper. I've still got quite a bit of body here. Remember, it's a platter I'm making, so it can be quite thin, and again, I've got to be very careful here, because you can see that it just pulls out. It's just very, very, very soft, and we'll fix that later. Now I've changed to this quite rough sanding disc, and I'm going to try and get a lot of the tear out removed, and then I'll come back to my dovetail and try and improve that again, probably with a sanding tool, not just the cutting tool. So let's have a go at that. Just a quick word of warning about this spalted wood is that its dark staining is actually a fungus that's in there, so when you're turning it, when you're sanding it specifically, wear a dust mask. Hopefully you can see here now that this is starting to smooth out and getting to the kind of shape that I want. Obviously this is still very rough, got to do a lot more sanding on it yet, but you can see that the tear out is vastly reduced, if not completely eradicated. There's still a few areas like here where you can see that the speltering has really made this soft, and this is like a little hollow here, and because it's a light colour, I may be able to come back to this with a light coloured wood filler and fill that and then sand over it, and again you won't be able to spot those areas of wood filler, but you know, it makes it a little bit harder, and we'll come back to that treatment of how we can make this a little bit harder to get a nicer finish on it later. Here you can see the linear scratches that have been caused by the sanding disc, but you can also see, if I can find an area which is particularly bad, here we are, you can see there's actually some dips still in the surface here, some holes still in the surface, and if I chased all these all the way out, then I'd actually lose quite a lot of the body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill these and then re-sand it, and then start going up to finer and finer grits, so eventually I get a smooth surface here. And again, I'm going to use the dust that I'm creating from this sanding to make the filler for these holes.